This presentation discusses the neural processes associated with the act of punching, socking, haymaking, or otherwise applying fists to face, and thus contains depictions of mild violence. Characters depicted within this presentation are from the Street Fighter franchise belonging to Capcom Company. Viewer discretion is advised. We all know what a punch looks like. You might be imagining something like this, or this, or this. But have you ever considered what happens in our brains and nervous systems to enable us to apply fist to face? Let's use these colorful Street Fighters to illustrate the processes of motor control that go into throwing a punch. Before throwing a punch, Ryu here needs to situate himself through information provided by his eyes, ears, and touch receptors. Let's get a closer look at his brain to see how this happens. Information is processed step by step in various parts of the brain, such as the frontal lobe, which is responsible for decision-making and reasoning, the temporal and occipital lobes, which process sound and vision respectively. The parietal lobe processes touch or pressure-based information, with the sensory cortex combining all this information and delivering it to the motor cortex. The motor cortex is responsible for generating the plan and instructions to successfully pull off a motion, and the cerebellum coordinates information based on where our limbs are and where they need to be to prevent any errors. The motor cortex is the most important section of the brain for voluntary movement, so let's get a closer look at it. Generally, it's divided into three sections: the primary motor cortex, the premotor cortex, and the supplementary motor area. The primary motor cortex governs muscle movement, not by commanding single muscles at a time, but rather by engaging whole sequences of muscles in multiple muscle groups. Think of these sequences or programs like the inputs you might give in a video game to do a special move. The supplementary motor area is involved in generating these programs, and it's believed that the premotor area is more involved in planning and selecting the neural pathways associated with different program movements. You might be wondering what a neural pathway is. In simple terms, it's a series of connected neurons that pass impulses between each other. These can be thought of as little chemical or electrical signals that pass from one neuron to the next in a sequence. The final parts of the brain that we will focus on are the cerebellum and the basal ganglia. These are basically regulatory bodies, with the basal ganglia preventing any unnecessary movements. The cerebellum gathers sensory information about the body's position, sense of pressure, and balance in order to successfully pull off whatever complex movements the motor cortex has planned. Now, let's get into the meat of it all: the muscle. The body holds three types of muscles: smooth, like the ones around your stomach that enable food to move through your gut; cardiac, which are the special muscles that make up your heart; and the skeletal muscles that are connected to our bones and allow for voluntary movement. These are the most relevant for the topic at hand. The muscle tissue is constructed of fascicles, which are constructed of groups of muscle fibers that are in turn made of string-like units called myofibrils. They cause motion in the body by contracting to shrink and relaxing to expand. Muscle fibers know when to contract when they receive electrical signals from motor neurons connected to the brain via neurons in the spinal cord. Zooming further in, we see the place that motor neuron and muscle fiber meet, called the synaptic bouton. Here, when a signal is received, a chemical called acetylcholine is released, causing the contraction of the muscle. The absence of this chemical will cause the muscle to return to a relaxed state. It is a planned sequence of contractions and relaxations that enable movement like a punch to take place. It's important to note that a good punch doesn't just happen at your hands. It starts at the feet, recruiting muscles at the core and back, and finally ending with the launching of your fist. Let's take it all the way back to our street fighting friend Ryu. First, his brain takes in information from its senses, processing and delivering it to the motor cortex, which then formulates and selects the right sequence of neural pathways to cause the movement. These instructions will travel down the spinal column to all the relevant muscle groups, causing the required contractions and relaxations. And through the regulation of the basal ganglia and cerebellum, all these factors combine to give us a powerful punch and a perfect knockout.